Welcome to the Rochester Hills Museum at Van Hoosen Farm. My name is Kathy Fitzpatrick. I'm the program coordinator here, and today we have a special guest. I am here with David Majestic. He is our beekeeper here on site, and he's going to walk us through installing the bees. So welcome, David.
Good to be here.
Yeah, so David, I thought first we could actually tell people about the bees' house, kind of look at the structure, and then we can go ahead and install the bees. How's that sound?
Sure.
All right, let's check it out.
This is a basic Langstroth hive. It's made up of several boxes that hold individual frames for the bees. And I'll give you a quick shot of what the interior looks like. This is a single frame. There's 10 in a box. And the bees actually make this comb and they deposit their honey in it, and then they cover it with wax and they store it after it's dried for long term. And once this is fully capped, we go ahead and take the honey and then process it for market.
Now, how many frames do you have in each box usually?
This is 9 because we're going to put the queen right here.
Okay.
But when she's in there and all settled in a few days, we'll add one more frame there. Cool. Just like underneath here, there's 10.
Now, I noticed the boxes are 2 different sizes. Is there a reasoning behind the different sizes?
Yes, the bottom box is referred to as a brood box, and that's where she raises the young. This is a foundation. This is a artificial foundation, and she'll draw that out with wax, and that's where she'll raise the young. And ideally, all the babies, the larvae, the bees will be hatched in the lower box. And then once they produce honey on this box here, in theory, she won't cross over or go above the honey to lay eggs. So ideally, we want to keep her down here. This is a cover for the top of the frame. This just keeps the heat in.
Now, when you say it keeps the heat in, what temperatures are best for honeybees? Do they like this
Well,
weather right now?
I think right around 94, 96 degrees is where they try to keep the hive year-round. That's all winter and throughout the summer. And then if it gets too warm, they'll exit out the front, and then you'll see them beating off the bottom of the hive, like a whole beard, when they got to get cooled down. And then we ventilate them and do a few things to keep them comfortable for the summer. And that's just the cover there.
Can you explain what's going on in the front of the hive? What's down here at the bottom?
Yep, this is the entrance right here, and we have it reduced down with this board here until the colony is built up and they can defend and protect themselves from any outside problems. And then this feeder here, this is sugar water, and we put that in there, and for like the first couple weeks the bees will feed on that, and that helps them produce wax so they can build their cells out and start to create the hive.
How long do you normally feed them that honey water?
A week or two. It just depends on the temperature and how fast it goes down.
Wonderful. And what are some of the first flowers or plants that they're out there looking for in the springtime here in Michigan? What do they need?
Just any of the ornamental plants produce a lot of pollen. Out in the big grass fields, it's really nice if they can get the clover honey, which is lighter. They'll hit any of the vegetables just to pollinate the flowers, apple trees, which are around us here.
Wonderful. All right, so should we go ahead and get the bees?
Sure. So here's a box that came from Georgia. I was told it arrived here in Michigan Sunday night, and that they've been with me because the temperature's been cold, so I had them at home in the garage for a couple days. And today, hopefully the weather will warm up from here on out, and they'll be okay for the rest of the season.
All right, David, I noticed that inside the box there's a metal can or something. Can you tell us what that is?
Yep, that's the feeder can that they send with sugar water. I think it's like 2 to 1. It's water and sugar. And in the bottom of the can, I'll show you once we open it up, it has holes in it, and the bees can feed off of that. I can't pull it out right now until we get this ready, but I'll show you when the time comes. So I like to work from behind the hive because it leaves the bees the area they deserve up front for room, and they're not in as much fear if I'm in front of them. So this is the inner cover is off now. I'll remove at least 3 frames and just set them aside here. And then we get the bees ready to go. This is the sugar can. And we take that out, cover the bees up here. And then I generally give them a little spray of sugar water just so they stick together. It doesn't harm them. Kind of mellows them out.
Is there a reason they're all balled up right now?
Yep, there's a queen inside. You'll see her in a minute. You'll see her cage. Alrighty, so there's our bees. Now we're going to take the queen out. Hopefully she's survived the trip. And here's what runs the hive right here. We know she's healthy and a good strong queen because all the worker bees are gathered around her. So we're just going to shake it down. So the queen is about 1 inch long. She's in there with attendant bees, and they rode the trip with her from Georgia just to feed her and preen her and keep her happy. So we're going to set her aside for a moment. Now we shake all these bees into the hive. That's good. Then I just put this in front, and they'll find the hive. They'll just know where the queen's at, and they'll just join her later in the day.
Now, David, how do they know where the queen is?
Pheromones. They smell her. Okay. Now on the end of the queen cage, there's a cork. Kim, I'll need a thing to pry that out. There's a cork right in the end, and here's the white candy. And it's going to take about 4 to 5 days for the bees to eat through the candy to give her a passage to escape into the hive so that she can go in and start doing her work. But she needs to be acclimated, or she needs to be accepted by the colony. Otherwise, they'll kill her if I put her in there right away. Because they're new, these bees are all new to the queen. Okay, so here's the cork. Gone. Candy's in there. And they'll slowly eat it. And hopefully in about 4 to 5 days, she'll be released. I just give it a quick staple, and she's good to go. So just put the inner cover on. There goes the lid.
David, what's the rock for? Why do you put that on top?
So the lid doesn't blow off until the hide gets heavy enough, or it's glued together with propolis to hold it down. Bears, animals, young children. So that's one.
Now, earlier you did tell us about the different sizes of the boxes where the bees and the queen bee kind of laid the eggs and had the children in the bottom box. The top box was for honey, but I'm sure a lot of people are wondering, where do the bees go to the bathroom?
They leave the hive.
They
literally, they'll go outside of the hive. It's kind of like a bear's den. They say it's the cleanest situation.
So they have an outhouse too, huh?
Yep, they have a big outhouse.
Now, how do you tell the difference between female and male bees?
The size.
The size.
Yep.
And at this point, are there any male bees in the hive?
No, there's no males here. They'll be raised later, and they're strictly to breed with the queen, and they'll do a mating flight. I think there's like 10 or 12 flights she'll go on, and she'll be fertilized for life.
Wow. So what's the life cycle of a bee then? How long do they live usually?
I think it's 27 days during the summer for a worker bee. The queen, if things are ideal and she's real healthy, I think 4 to 5 years for the queen. And then in the winter, in the fall, she'll start to lay more of a hybrid bee that will tolerate the climate and will last longer. And she'll do that intentionally to reduce the size of the hive so that the colony size will go smaller for the winter because they don't want to eat all the food. They have to reduce it down so they have food to survive.
That makes sense.
But the winter bee will last longer. So there's another nice healthy queen. There's 6 or 7 attendant bees in there.
I just love hearing the sound of the hives, that buzz.
It's a good buzz.
It is.
And they're warming up. That hive was happy. Or that box of bees. Bugs in a box. Now this is honey from last year
Oh,
that
wow.
we had saved, and you could literally drag your finger through it, and that's all the honey, all the fresh honey right inside there. But we leave that in there. We try and save them some honey for the spring.
All right, David, do you keep any records of the hives, like production or?
Kim keeps the record.
what are some of the issues you can run into when you're installing bees? This seems to be going quite all right so far. What are some of the trouble points?
Narrating. No, it's pretty straightforward. You know, after you've done it enough times, there's actually a routine that I can go through here, you know, really, really quick. You know, forgetting tools at home. The rain comes. You know, some unforeseen things that you just hope you don't anticipate.
Now, what's all that on the top of that lid there? What is all that stuff kind of towards the edges?
That's propolis. This is, it's like bee epoxy. They make this and they actually glue the hive together, and they'll fill every little crack, like this on top of here, that everything is glued together. And when I come back here in, you know, in the spring, later in the spring, I'll have to use this tool to separate the boxes, to split them apart, because they're literally glued together. Are they coming out of the front yet? Anywhere?
They're hanging out at the front.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if they came out of it though. So is that a sign that you know that they've taken to the hive if they're coming out the front, or?
No, they're probably going to hang in there till it warms up a little bit. You know, the first sunny day, they'll just, all of a sudden this whole place will just be a big hot mess. It'll just heat up and you won't want to be too close.
Now it is kind of a cooler day out, so I actually don't have safety equipment on myself,
right.
But if someone wants to come and see the hives, you know, how would they approach the bees and watch, and what should they look for?
Approach from the rear, like I'm working. I wouldn't recommend getting too close. If they want to come out and see them, I'd say stand at least 25 feet away and stay out of their flight path, because they'll generally just take off straight out. These are the new frames that are undeveloped. If you wanted to, I'll trade you.
Sure. All right, you said you've been doing this for 6 years. What's your favorite honeybee fact that everybody should know?
I'm sorry, honeybee facts?
Favorite honeybee fact that everybody should know?
I would say they tell us 1/3 of everything you put in your mouth or eat is pollinated by a bee.
Oh, wow. Now, is that honeybees, or are there other types of bees?
No, it's honeybees.
Honeybees. Wow.
Yeah, wasps, hornets, yellow jackets, bumblebees, they do not produce honey. Yeah. Just the honeybee.
Now, are honeybees acclimated to all climates? Can you find them in all 50 states?
They do them in Alaska. They do them in Marquette, Michigan, I know, up in Canada.
Wow.
All over the United States, Hawaii. They like the warmer states. Spritz so you don't get chewed up. So that frame is what they call foundation, and they have not produced their comb on it. And I don't know, you can't really see it, and the sun's not out. But each of these hexagons will become a cell that'll be about a 1/2 inch long. And then the bees will deposit their nectar and honey into it, and then it'll become, I'm looking for an example here. It'll look like this. in about 3 months. And those are the cells that the bees live and store all their food and their honey.
Now that honeycomb shape, everybody knows that honeycomb shape. Is there anything special about that shape, or why isn't it a circle or a square?
I think it's because it's structural. They lay it on both sides of the, it's on both sides of the comb, and you can see it almost looks like it's built on the opposite side. It's hard to explain, but it structurally, they say it's a structural thing that they build that shape so it matches the identical pattern on the other side. And this is like a starter wax thing for the bees to work from. It's kind of hard to explain.
Yeah, it's artistic. And you were talking to me a little bit before, but how do they keep the honey from falling out of the honeycombs?
7 degrees. The cell is faced up 7 degrees. And then after it gets full, they'll cap it with wax to try and keep it in there. So another nice healthy queen.
Now these hives here, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 7 hives here.
Right.
And do you have any other hives at your house or at the county, or?
Not that we're going to use for bees for the summer.
Okay.
We're going to run with 7 this year.
What's the most you've done in 1 year? How ambitious have you been?
I don't know, 6 I think. Kim, was our, yeah. So this is our big year.
And so we're installing the bees now, and it's April, end of April. When is the first time that they'll actually produce honey that you can take and
if the weather's good and it's warm, I would say July.
July?
Yeah. Someone needed an inner cover on Sunday for this one, Kim. We got one more in the middle. All right, thanks.
So David, what happens if you open up this box and the queen is actually dead? Or what if it dies in the next couple of days? What happens then?
They will begin to make their own queen.
And how do they do that?
They will actually, the workers will get together and they will form what they call a supercell. It's a supersedure cell. So that if the queen dies, they'll hopefully produce a new one, and it'll take a few weeks to get started. In our case, if the queen died, I just go to my sources and get a new queen.
Get a new one.
Get a new one.
Yeah. Now, do they only make one of those cells, or do they make a
No,
couple
they have
extra just in
cells
case?
throughout the year, and there will be queens that will be laid in the hive or close to hatching. And then if the current queen is doing a good job, they will either kill the cell before it hatches, kill the larvae, or kill the queen after she's hatched.
Oh, wow.
But if she's not doing a good job or they feel that she's sick, then they'll let the new queen rule the colony.
So is that how they transition? You said a queen bee can usually last about 4 or 5 years. Is that the natural transition then?
Yeah, I think it could be in the perfect situation, but I don't think it'd be pretty tough in Michigan to run one hive for 5 steady years.
Yeah.
We're lucky to get, to survive a winter here. And then with all the parasites and the other things going on right now and the fertilizers, it's real tough to keep the bees going.
Yeah. What are some of those big problems for bees and beekeeping these days?
Fertilizers.
And how do those interrupt the bee process?
The bees have a GPS tracking system that they can identify where they're going and where they've been, and they communicate between the other bees where the food source is. And when they say that when they get caught up in the bad fertilizers, it throws off their homing instincts. So the bees will be out in the field away from the hive and they won't know how to return. Oh. And then the colony eventually will just die out in the field one at a time.
Oh, no.
It's a slow death, yeah.
Now I know we'll have you out here again over the summer. We'll talk a little bit more about the hives, like the bees in the hive, what they're doing, and the honey production. But do you do checks regularly?
I'll be back here Sunday night.
Sunday night.
I'll make sure that the queens got out of the cage and add a couple things. I'll add some sugar water if needed. And then I'll be out after. If the queen's going good, we won't bother them for a few weeks. We'll come back and check in a few weeks, and if they need another super or another box on top, then we'll give them some room. It won't take long for the colony to build up. The gentleman where I picked up the bees the other day, my friend went with me. He asked how many were in a box. He told him he thought maybe about 2,000 in this 3-pound box.
Wow.
When the summer gets going, it could be up to 60, as high as 80,000 bees.
Wow, that's a lot of bees.
And then the hive would be, you know, about 5 or 6 boxes high.
Now I know here at the farm, the family raised dairy cattle, and they kind of chose the breeds depending on whether they wanted milk or butter. So with the bees, is there a difference between the breeds, you know, whether they winter better or higher producers, or what do we have here?
These are Italian bees. These are really mellow. There are other bees that they actually are a smaller bee. They're a lot more aggressive. They're faster flyers, and they produce wax and get out into the field to bring honey back at a higher rate. They're a smaller bee. We've tried them. I don't know. I like the Italians because they're pretty mellow.
They're nicer.
Yeah, when you come back in the later summer, it'll be a totally different, you know, everything will be really have grown and taken off. You can really hear them in there now. They're happy.
Oh yeah, you really can. Now, does the sound change? As a beekeeper, can you tell when they're happy versus when they're angry? Does the buzz change?
I don't know. I guess I don't think the bee sound changes, but I think mentally, when they're really aggressive, it's more intense.
Oh, okay.
And when they're real mellow, it's always probably the same frequency and the same thing. But when you get more honey on the hive, they get really aggressive, and then when they know you're in fear, and I think mentally, when you start hearing that, it starts to wear on you.
Do other bees ever try, or like, does any, other than animals, do other bees or insects try and get in the hives and steal the honey?
Yeah, we've had mice get into the hive here, and we've had wasps, hornets, ants, moths. Then you got your raccoons and all your little varmints.
Things with opposable thumbs.
Yeah.
All right, well, I want to say thank you for joining us. Thank you, David, for coming out. We will do another check-in. Hopefully, we'll get some good honey from the hives here. Sure. And we'll be seeing you soon.